Group 7 is working on a food pantry collection for Matoaka High School. Food Line has agreed to contribute, and Publix paperwork is being filled out for ongoing corporate donations. And they have a group meeting March 4th at Fest, Virginia. Group 8 and Group 12 meet weekly at Urban Farmhouse in Midlothian on Tuesdays at 9 and Sundays at 4. They are currently working on postcards for special elections in other states, and they're open to writing postcards for our advocacy groups and our candidates. They are also collecting ongoing collections for Sylvia's Sisters and Homeward. Group 9 has weekly meetings at PERC, Mondays at 10, for knitting postcards and conversation. They have an ongoing Providence Middle School adoption and are collecting food pantry items for Clover Hill High School.
Yeah, the knitting is for everybody in LWCC.
Yeah, you can. Well, you can go to any LWCC member can go to any of these groups. That's why I'm saying, if you want to travel to the West End and go to dinner whenever I said, do it. It's for. And okay, our last group, 11, has been having postcards for Connor Lamb. They're probably going to do some more for the Muslim band, and they've replenished school supplies for Reams Road Elementary. They have a meeting the 28th of February at Candelas with guest speakers from our diversity group and New Virginia Majority. So I think you need to give yourselves all a round of applause. This has been a really hard week for me, and I know for many of you who's been following the Stoneman Douglas shooting. But those kids are so inspiring because they are so, they're passionate, but they're turning their hurt and anger into action. Like I think a lot of people have been doing lately, but they're doing it so well and so, it's just heartwarming to hear their words and see them. And I hope that you guys will continue to watch their progress and help them along the way with whatever support we can do. I know my oldest son is a junior at Byrd High School. He was running late today, and I got a phone call right when he was getting ready to walk out the door from the principal at Byrd saying that they had had a school violence threat. And the police were, looking into it. But I told him, if you don't want to go to school today, you don't have to. And he's a 17-year-old boy, so of course he stayed home. but it's a hard time. It's a hard time we're living in right now. And one of the things too about these kids is that I listened to the press conference with them after they had marched to Florida State Capitol, and several of them used the word discouraging about trying to meet with their legislatures there. And after getting more involved here, even in the General Assembly last year and this year, I totally understand why they use that word. There is a handful of Republicans who are in charge of the majority of the power in these committees, and until we win majority in these legislative bodies, our progressive value legislation just is not going to go through. So that is why these races are so important. That's why these candidates are so important tonight. I want everyone to join me in thanking Helen Ali and Abigail Spanberger and Dan Moore for being here tonight, please. We're going to do it tonight. We are going to give them each 6 minutes to say whatever they want to say, introduce themselves. We're pretty informal here. And Becky is going to hold up, when you've got about 30 seconds left, she's going to hold up the yellow paddle, okay, so you know to kind of wrap it up. And then when it's done, it's the red paddle. Don't get the red paddle. I'm so not going to make a joke right now. That's for later. I got to reel myself in. Okay, so they're going to introduce themselves for 6 minutes, and then we're going to open up the floor. There's a mic right here. Come down the mic, and they will each have 2 minutes to answer each question. We're going to try to make it as fair as possible. Jim Michelle will be standing at the mic. If you have any questions, or if you have a question about your question, ask Jim Michelle. And then same with the 2 minutes on the reply. You'll get the yellow paddle at 30 seconds, the red for when it's over. We're going to rotate order. So Helen will go first. The first question will be Helen, Dan, Abigail. The second question will start with Dan, Abigail, Helen, and so on. So they'll rotate. And if your question doesn't get answered tonight, feel free to leave it with one of us, and we may, no promises, because we're stretched a little thin, but we may do something either online or Facebook, we'll do something, and try to get the answers, your answers answered. Okay, so thank you, let's begin, woo! They'll be here afterwards, so you're welcome to just come up to them after. They don't bite.
Hello. Good evening to LWCC, and thank you for hosting such a great event. The work you've done has been remarkable, and it reminds me of my mom. My mom is a strong and courageous woman. She is a blue dot in a red sea. She's owned her business for 35 years in Madison County, and she always puts her signs up, despite people blackballing her business, literally, and she doesn't care. She has shown my sister, who is also here, and my daughter, how to be strong. And she has shown me a lot of moral courage. And I do love you, Mom, and thank you for being such a strong advocate. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. My parents divorced when I was really young. And when my mom married my stepfather, we had 7 of us at that point, 7 boys. We bought an 80-acre farm in Houdaw, Tennessee. It was a log house built in the 1830s, 2 rooms. The boys were in the attic, and a loft. We had no running water. We raised tobacco, and we raised cattle. We had a roof over our heads, we had food in our belly, and we had love in the house. But we didn't have a whole lot more. And we learned how to make it on our own. In 1980, we moved to Madison County, here in Virginia. I was struggling in school. I will never forget this. I remember Charles Carter catching me cheating on a test. And rather than kick me out or punish me or ruin my life, he became a mentor. And he turned my life around. Second chances count in this world. He gave me a second chance. I earned a scholarship, and that's how I paid for my college. I went into the Marine Corps because the Marine Corps paid for my college. I fought in wars in Bosnia, in Kosovo, in Iraq. I was an attack pilot. By 2008, I was in the Marine Corps Reserves, and I was an airline pilot for Continental Airlines. And the Great Recession hit. And like many Americans, I lost my job. I was unemployed, I had a mortgage, and I had a family that I was responsible for. And because of the Marine Corps Reserves, and democratic policies that allow us a social safety net, I was able to pay my mortgage. I was able to feed my family. I understand what it's like to be in that situation. I've been there. By 2009, our savings was gone, and I took a risk, and I went back active duty in the Marine Corps. And while there, I always say necessity is the mother of all invention. I created a program that was a lot more efficient in how we deployed our forces, and because of that, the Marine Corps brought me back onto active duty. And at that point in my career, I always say, is when you stop using your hand and start using your head. I found myself working in embassies throughout Eastern Europe in places like Bulgaria, Romania, and Ukraine. And because of that, my follow-on assignment was to President Obama's State Department. The key information there is in 2014 when the Russians invaded Ukraine, and that's kind of circling back to how I got here. I was sent to Ukraine. My boss, the undersecretary, sent me there. I was a colonel at the time to help. One of the first names that came across all of our desks and information was Paul Manafort. At that time, this is 2014, Paul Manafort was working for Viktor Yanukovych, who worked for Vladimir Putin. 2 years before he became... Folks, the Constitution can handle a president like this one, but it requires Congress not be complicit, and this Congress is complicit. And Dave Bratt is a yes man to Donald Trump. He has to go. If we do not take a lever of power away from this administration, I fear where we're going to be. This is a must-win situation. We have 24 seats in the House of Representatives that we need to take away. And I tell you what, if you need any more proof of what these people stand for, look no further than the $1.5 trillion tax cut. It's a little more than a down payment on this year's election for them. That's why they give to the donor class. That's why they give the tax cuts to those folks. That money needs to be spent right here on roads and bridges, on infrastructure, on skilled labor training, on broadband infrastructure throughout this area. Time, and we have to stop leaving people behind. I think that's imperative, and that's how we're going to. My name is Dan Ward. Questions tonight? Please come up.
Hello, LWCC. Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me now?
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello, LWCC. What a ride. It's been a year, and I met you guys before I even decided to run for office. And we have rode this ride. We have marched, we have protested, we have rallied all over this district and up in D.C. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for the continuing the fight. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Helen Ali. I was named after my grandmother who came to America from Cuba. She came to America with just clothes on her back, never to see her family, friends, or anyone else ever again, but she was determined to find the American dream and live that dream. Her determination was successful. In a few years, she did actually live the American dream. And she instilled that same fight in me and my family. And so at a very early age, I decided I was going to join the military. So I am a veteran of the United States. I was very happy to make that decision. I wanted everyone to be able to experience the American dream as my grandmother. Military, I served as a specialist, and I learned a lot of and so I didn't get a complete career. I was more interested in being an entrepreneur, so I opened my own business. I was born in the Catskills of New York, but I moved to Virginia 30 years ago when I got out of the Army. When I came to Richmond 30 years ago, I came literally to Richmond, and it didn't look as it looks now. So I was concerned. I didn't know if I had made the right choice. I didn't know if I should go back to California. I didn't know what I should do. But what I decided to do was stay here and fight. And fight I did. I started helping people open businesses. I started helping people expand businesses. And I opened my own business advocating for small business. Privilege and the honor of Richmond Economic Development Authority. Board, I speak with contractors, with the planning, with plans for the city. Those plans it looks as it does. Excited about it. We see the Richmond to grow and out, and we had a mayor that was. So what people are going to do about that? A medical practice. We specialize in. It was the bring affordable health. It's a area that we covered under insurance. To figure out how to service. We don't make a lot of money. Fighting the obesity with and actually never that I started getting our country was going in. Take away health care. That I heard. And for sure they aren't heard because they're screaming for affordable health care all over the place. Representative Dave Bratt was out there voting against health care. I'm not sure what district he lives in. Because we were doing die-ins at his town hall, you know, so he knows that's what we want, but he's not working for us, and that's one of the reasons that I added to my platform that I want to do campaign finance reform so that they can stop working for the corporations and special interest groups and the NRA and start working for American people again. Because we sent them up to Congress to work for us, but they're not up there. They're up there working for Wells Fargo. They're getting better deals than we are. We're not getting anything. So I want to be that voice that we aren't, they aren't hearing. I want to fight for health care. I want to fight for education. I want to fight for the elderly because they're trying to take away their medical, their Medicare. They're trying to decrease that. They're trying to, decrease Social Security, make you have to wait longer. I want to expand Social Security. And I took on the NRA and I added to my platform that I'm going to fight for gun control in this country. I want a ban on assault rifles. I'm a veteran. I love guns. But I don't want our kids being shot. So I want a ban on assault weapons, a ban on those bombs, those stops, and I want one last thing. I want common sense gun control. Can we just please have universal background checks? Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abigail Spanberger, and I am so pleased to join you all this evening. I frequently talk about my experiences when discussing the reasons I'm running for Congress. My background is I'm a former federal law enforcement officer and a former CIA operations officer. In that role, I worked undercover for the entirety of my time at the agency to collect information that was of vital importance to our policymakers, our president, our diplomats, and our military, to enable them to make strong and informed decisions about issues of national security. And I often talk about the fact that I pursued this career of public service because of my father. My father's an Army veteran and a career federal law enforcement officer, and he instilled in me from a very early age the idea that there is no higher calling, no greater vocation than service to country. I also frequently talk about my grandfather, who was the eternal optimist. And even though he was widowed at a very young age and left to raise 4 children on his own, he depended on his hard job at the paint factory to provide for his children. And throughout the entirety of his life, he had an unwavering optimism and a belief that anything is possible in this country. But what I don't talk about a lot is where I get my passion. And I get my passion from my mother. And I hear some chuckles because I know some of you know her.
Yes, we do.
And I get my passion from my mother because she's feisty and she's a fighter, and she raised me to be feisty, and she raised me to be a fighter. And my mother has been very involved with issues of advocacy for the entirety of her life, and since retiring as a nurse, she's turned her focus wholly towards advocacy work to advocate for equality within our state and within our country. But growing up, I had a different perspective of her. Growing up, I understood that she was driven by compassion and this resilience. And I remember as a nurse, when she was working in the mid-'80s, we were living in Pennsylvania at the time, and during the HIV and AIDS epidemic, there were many medical professionals and nurses who would not see AIDS patients. And I remember as a kid, my mom talking about this and just saying that they're sick and they need my help. And she would see every patient that they sent her to see, no matter what was afflicting them, because she said they're sick and they need my help. And to understand where she gets this resilience and this grit, it's important to understand her history. And she's imparted that on me. She, at a very young age, was taken out of her family, as were her siblings, and put in the foster care system. And she was in the foster care system until she was about 5, and she was placed back with her father and his second wife. And her life was hard. She ended up being the middle of 7 children. She was responsible for everything, which is why she's feisty and a bit bossy, because she's supposed to be responsible for everything. But my understanding her history, she understood that in changing her life. And so through education in her life that she lives now, and so need help. And that it is needed, because even though she had a lot of grit and resilience and was able to fight for herself, there are people who need a hand. There are people who need help. And when we see ourselves in this place where in our country, our government is currently assaulting equal rights and women's rights and our educational system and our healthcare system and our environment and our place in the world, we need people with a commitment to service. We need people with an incredible level of optimism that change is possible. And we need people who understand what it is to work with resilience and show grit and compassion and fight to make sure that we are making our educational system stronger, and to fight to make sure that we are making our healthcare system stronger, that we are advocating for the rights of those who need advocates. We are advocating for women's rights and equal rights and LGBTQ rights and immigrants' rights. And we are fighting for more gun violence prevention. We are fighting to keep our kids safe in school and our communities safe. And I am running for Congress because I believe deeply that change is possible. I believe deeply that we can achieve so much. And this community should know better than anybody else what happens when a lot of engaged, optimistic, and feisty people get together.
Yeah.
We did it in 2017, and we will do it again in 2018, and then we'll do it again in 2019. I thank you all for being here, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for those introductions. Thanks, Becky. Hi, everyone. I am Jen Michelle Padini. I am an advocacy leader here at LWCC, and I'm also the executive director of Virginia Normal. So, 2 quick points before we get to the questions. First, Larry Barnett is back there.
Yay! Fantastic, the red box.
Larry is going to make his way around the auditorium right now with this red box. And in it, you are going to put cash and checks for the food bank. So just in case you didn't drop off some canned goods out front, you can now put your money in this box, and Larry can't wait to come see you. So he'll be making his way through. That's right. Dig deep. And this is for our high school food bank. Matoaka and Clover Hill. All right, Matoaka and Clover Hill need your dollars. Now, Peggy has cards. So those of you who need a card for a question, she will also be making her way through the aisles. If you'd like to leave your question with her, we might get to that later, but if you'd like to come up to the mic, still take your card and come on up here. And all right, Peggy wants you to wave. Now, if you have questions, go ahead and come on down here and line up in this aisle. But since I'm first, I'm going to ask a question. All right. Ladies, gentlemen, you may have heard Virginia greatly expanded its medical marijuana program this week. You also may have heard earlier this year that tiny little Keebler elf named Attorney General Jeff Sessions rescinded a very important memo called the Cole Memo, which protected states and the people who live there from federal interference if they were in compliance with their state marijuana laws. What will you do when you go to Congress to protect Virginia and Virginia's program from federal interference in our state-regulated medical cannabis program? Will you join the Cannabis Caucus? Will you sign on to the CARES Act to protect medical programs and patients? And will you sign on to H.R. 1227, which is already sponsored by 2 Virginia congressmen, and this is the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act. So we will start with Helen, and then we will make our way on down the row.
I would absolutely join the Cannabis Caucus. I absolutely believe marijuana should be legal, medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. And so, you know, we're not going to stop people from smoking marijuana, but we're going to pay a whole lot of money to have them in prison. In fact, we spend $82 billion a year to keep people locked up, some of them for marijuana. That equates to between $20,000 and $55,000 a year per person that wanted to smoke a marijuana joint, or whatever the offense was. So I absolutely want to be an advocate, stay an advocate for marijuana.
So I think the first part of your question was absolutely the most relevant to what's really going on here. Jeff Sessions, in his attempt to influence elections, is putting people in jail. And ultimately, that's really what they're going to do, because if you start putting people in jail, they can't vote. And when they can't vote, you control elections. And that's what these folks are doing. I'm going to have a little self-confession here. I had a ticket. I was in court yesterday, I think it was. I saw 2 people get sentenced to jail for marijuana while I was waiting for my 64 and a 55. It's unconscionable what's going on. We 100% need to decriminalize marijuana. 100%. And what I want, and as far as all the HRs and the specific acts, I don't know that, and I'll have to look into that more, but for sure we have to stop putting people in jail for getting high. With that being said, what I would like to see is there's been enough information, I'm sure, from Colorado and from Washington for us to do a legitimate study on finding out the pros and cons, and let's make an informed decision on it. Let's look at the data and see what it says. But putting people in jail is not the right answer. The government needs to get out of your business on that one, 100%. Thank you.
So to specifically answer your questions, yes, I would join the Cannabis Caucus. Yes, I would support the CARES Act. And I would join on with HR 1227, which you mentioned had Virginia sponsorship. I believe that's Tom Garrett. Ideally, we would be co-sponsoring it with someone else in the next Congress. I hope that he won't be there. I also support HR 2020, which is the bill that would reschedule marijuana from a Class 1 narcotic substance to a Class 3. That, in fact, the Class 1 are for drugs that have no medical benefit, and in fact, proven time and time again, there is a strong medical benefit for marijuana, so I would also support that bill. But overall, I do believe that access to medical marijuana is an important next step. In looking at the CARES Act, that is, passage of that act would allow for federal research related to the use of medical marijuana, which ideally would be able to propel states' abilities to enact what's appropriate for them. And then under Tom Garrett's act, it would be the states' rights to choose what's the best path forward for the individual states would in fact be protected. Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to salute the 3 of you for remaining in the race since I stepped back. It's been a real pleasure to get to know all 3 of you. So my question is, can you share how your specific past experience in government will help you be a force for real effective change in Congress?
My turn to go first. So, as I mentioned earlier, I was fortunate enough to work in President Obama's State Department. And while there, I ran some pretty large programs, one of which was basically the Free Syrian Army, that whole logistical support program. I ran the Washington side of that. So it was a very extensive interagency process that involved the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, and other agencies inside the executive branch, as well as on the legislative branch, getting the funding approved. So I had 3 years of working on the Hill, on those types of bills, as well as Ukraine, as well as inside the executive branch. And then when I retired in 2014, I became an advocate for aviation safety on the Hill for the Airline Pilots Association. So I've been working on the legislative side exclusively for the last 3 years. I have 6 years of experience in understanding inside the subcommittees and the committees and the conferences and how that all works, and when they do a conference between the Senate and the House. So I have 6 years of experience in Washington, D.C., and I think that counts for something, because I think it's a misnomer about sending, inexperienced people into the city that's probably the most complicated place on this earth. Running those levers of power is complicated and it's difficult. And I think it's helpful.
Ooh, ooh. No. No.
Hello.
Is this one working again?
Yeah.
In running these programs, I was responsible for ensuring the effectiveness of the programs, the strength of the programs, but pulling it back even further, understanding the worldwide terrorist threat. In order to be able to implement these programs and show impact. In addition to that, I worked issues related to Russia, counter-narcotics throughout Latin America, African leadership issues, counter-proliferation. So week to week and year to year, the expertise that I had to develop in issues of top national security issues was something that I had to dive deep on an issue, understand it fully, understand the impact on the American people, understand the necessity of providing this information back to our policymakers in Washington, and go out and actually collect that information. So I have a strong background in service and a strong background in running programs that are immense in their size, scope, and importance. And I believe that this experience is incredibly valuable and will be a strong element of my ability to serve on Capitol Hill.
I have a strong background in doing the job that I'm asking to do because I'm doing it now. I have in the military, I was a finance specialist, and as a finance specialist, we did get the opportunity to look at large budgets and balanced budgets. And, I am the legislative chair for the Crusade for Voters, and on that committee, we actually fought to get a referendum on the ballot this past November to renovate all of Richmond public schools. And you can see that on the news right now. They're fighting. The mayor has 6 months to come up with a plan to renovate the schools, and he's actually trying to do that. We said without raising taxes, but he's trying to raise taxes. I actually have a healthcare agency, so I know about medical insurance. So I already know how to advocate for healthcare because I know what needs in the healthcare division. I already know about how they work, and I know about some of the challenges that those plans have and what they can't cover and what they can't cover and why we need to have a coverage that covers more items, how to make people include more people. I already know how to do that. When I was on the board of the Economic Development Authority, I did economic development. And economic development is so needed in our district. We need to bring in the rural areas, they need broadband, and somebody needs to know how to develop that kind of stuff. I know how to bring jobs. I know how to expand business. That's the things that I've been doing for the last 20 years. I know about bills. How we discovered that we should work on this school bill is because Tim Kaine and Mark Warner, Senators Tim Kaine and Mark Warner came up with a bill that would allow schools to use the tax credits to renovate like Donald Trump did with his hotel. So we looked at that and said, let's help the schools. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Thank you all for being here and answering our questions. Appreciate your time. I know it's busy. My name is Kelly Eichfeld. I live in Midlothian, Virginia. My question, as Democrats, I sincerely hope that you all support the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. I want to know, how are you working to support it? And what will you do in Congress to make it happen, finally? Thank you.
Is it working? No. Okay. So, in past years, I have been engaged in advocacy for the Equal Rights Amendment. I have been down to the GA to advocate for it and speak on behalf of it. I have also brought my little girls who are featured on some of the posters. But in Congress, there are two ways that I would advocate for the ERA. I would sign on to the two-state ratification bill put out by Steyer, and I would also sign on to Maloney's start-over bill, because this is going to get done one way or the other, and I would advocate for pushing on both sides until we can push Virginia to take action. We saw what happened in Nevada last year. We thought it was going to lead the way for Virginia. And we, after we saw what happened this year, I think we are going to be fiery when we head into the GA, or when you all and all of the advocates head into the GA next year. And I hope to be cheering you on from Washington and making sure that we are pushing on the federal level to make sure that there is no time limit related to the approval by the two states. And we'll begin with the start-over bill as well, just to make sure that we can push it on both sides. Thank you.
I'm very passionate about the Equal Rights Amendment. I'm actually very passionate about discrimination. And so I think that discrimination in all forms needs to be distinguished. And so I am going to be fighting that we get rid of all discrimination, including the Equal Rights Amendment. So how I'm going to do that and get that bill passed, I'm going to be doing a lot of talking. And see, they don't do a lot of talking there. They're doing a lot of fighting. It takes someone who can talk to people at all levels. I have friends at all levels. I'm fighting to be a representative for Republicans and Democrats, because in the district, you're responsible for everybody. And so once you get people understanding that's what we're fighting for, I think I can convince enough people to vote with me. And if you can't convince enough people to vote with you on a bill, I don't think you should be in Congress. So first and foremost, I'm going to make some friends, and we're going to decide how are we going to go about running this country. Thank you.
So I think, like Abigail said, the most important thing we need to do right now is we have to win here. If we send a wave here, it's going to send a message in Virginia, and then we can get that done in Virginia. That is essential that happens. And the blue wave, folks, it's not just the Equal Rights Amendment. It's everything. We have to be able to get a majority, both here and in Congress in Washington, D.C., so we can start getting progressive ideas passed. We all know why things get blocked. And it's because they have the majority and they run the committees. So we have to get that. We have to win elections. And I will support as much as I can from Washington, but more importantly, we need to get it done here in Virginia, and we can do that next year. I feel very strongly about that. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Cindy Sussin, and I live in Midlothian. We will all be voting in a primary on June 12th. 3 shall enter, 1 shall leave. Victorious. We expect a very vigorous campaign over the next couple of months. Can you pledge tonight that you will refrain from a negative campaign, negative ads, jabs? Will you concentrate on what you will do for us? Thank you.
I don't believe in running smear campaigns. I don't believe in mentioning any candidates' names. It's all about what I'm trying to do and what I'm going to do. If I'm going to win, I want to win on my own merit. But I am going to tell you what I'm good at. And if that person isn't good at that, that's not my fault, but I will do that. So I'm not going to purposely smear anyone, and I take a pledge that I won't do that, but I will do everything I need to do to win. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I think that Ralph and Tom showed us the best way forward in the primary for the governor's race. It was an issue-based race. It made both of them better, and it made Ralph better when he emerged on the back end of that as a better candidate to defeat, Ed Gillespie in the general. That is the model that we need to follow as candidates, and we have been running a high-minded campaign, and we're going to continue that. So that's our pledge. Thank you.
I have a singular focus, and that is to flip this seat in November of 2018. And to do that, we need to ensure that every Democrat, every person who's ever voted as a Democrat, and every person who's not happy with where our country is today votes. That means that if we start smearing people, that means if we start being aggressive in a way that Democrats don't like, we will not get those people out to the polls. We need everyone to vote for something. And in our campaign, what we are doing now is we are building up our volunteer base. We are making sure that we are making inroads in communities across this district so that come November, we will have had practice throughout the months preceding, and we are able to ensure that everyone gets out to vote and we ultimately flip this seat. And I look forward to the primary, and I look forward to passing through the primary. And if we are to live up to our values and run the types of campaigns that we want to run and purport and demonstrate the values that we hope to bring to Washington, that starts here in the district.
Hi, my name is Lisa Fleming. I live in Moseley, and my question is regarding the separation of church and state. I'm very concerned about what's been happening, especially with this administration. So I'd like to know, if you're elected, would you recognize atheists and agnostic citizens as having equal rights to religious citizens? And also, if you yourself are a religious person, how would you separate your personal religious beliefs from affecting the actions that you take when you're in office?
That's a very, very good question, and it is fundamental to what this country stands for. I'm witnessing an erosion of that. And as somebody who has served all over the world and seen what happens when religion and politics gets mixed together and how it becomes a tool to suppress people, we have to at all costs stop this. We all know what this administration is doing it for. It's for profit, right? That's what they're going for. That's what Betsy DeVos is trying to do. They take $3 billion in Michigan, stealing it from public schools. And you know where this is going. Eventually, it doesn't take a genius to know what a despot's playbook is. And they're going to use this tool unless we stop it. So fundamentally, that is at its core why this country is what it is the separation of church and state. Our founding fathers understood that. And that's why it's enshrined into our Constitution. Thank you.
I will advocate for the separation of church and state. It is one of the founding principles of this country. And in fact, the fact that throughout our country's history, we have had people come to this country with different belief systems and different ideologies, or lack of belief system and a lack of a religious ideology, has contributed to the vast and diverse landscape that makes this country so great. I absolutely think it's inappropriate to bring religion into our schools. I think it is absolutely important that we respect the religions of everyone, and including the right to not have a religion for those citizens who do not. My own personal beliefs only inform my sense of duty to help other people and my sense of compassion for those around me. And that is how any amount of religion that I was raised with or continue to believe today, that is as far as it encroaches upon my ideals of what it is to be a legislator for for this diverse population for people across this country. Thank you.
I absolutely believe that we have to keep church and state separate. I think they're only trying to change that so that they can have contributions come through the church and then be able to get those funds into candidates. So that's the only reason why I'm thinking that they want to change those laws. But I want to absolutely keep a separation of church and state. I was brought up very religious in a religious family, and we all went to church. It was very strict. And so I lived, though, in a very diverse community. My community had every religion, every race, and most nationalities. And growing up in upstate New York in the Catskills, that's what you would find. So I had a high appreciation for every religion, even non-religious people. You know, even though I was in a strict environment at home, I was able to understand that it's important for people to be able to express their beliefs. And I actually am not a strict religious person, even though I was brought up that way. I actually feel like it was a little too restrictive. And so I'm a lot more open about religion. And I think you should be able to practice however you would like to practice, or not practice. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Claire Yarbrough from Midlothian, Virginia. What will you do when you get to Congress to protect and expand the rights of LGBTQ Virginians who can today still be fired from their jobs, denied housing, and lose parental rights based on their identity?
Everything possible to protect the rights of our LGBTQ friends and neighbors. First, among the actions that I would take is support the Equality Act, which addresses discriminations that exist in housing, in jobs, in credit, receiving credit, and across the board. And I would ensure that members of the LGBT community are protected from any amount of discrimination. I also would advocate, there's a bill before Congress that would ensure the rights of adoptive parents who are same-gendered couples to adopt children and to not be denied those rights. I would also, and I fully support the service of transgender service members in the military, and I would sign on to the bill that's currently in Congress that is ensuring the right of those brave men and women to continue serving in our military. Thank you.
Isn't it a shame that we have to even talk about it? Yeah. I mean, when are we going to get to the point as a race to where it doesn't matter what you are? Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're straight, it does not matter. We are people. And at some point in time, we have to get beyond this. The fact that we're having to legislate equality is a testament to how far we still have to go. You know, Donald Trump had 5 deferments to avoid service. We have people of all types who have served this country honorably and will continue to do so, and the fact that they want to discriminate against them is unconscionable. I'm so tired of having to defend what should be the obvious. Like, we are all just people. And when are we going to get to the point where we can treat people equally? Thank you.
This is why I think it's important that we end discrimination, and we have to do it at a local level first. And as we start to end discrimination against women, against children, against old people, against the LGBTQ community, all of it has to end. And until we come face to face with ending it in our own communities, then we could that's when we can only legislate that in the government. So we have to end it in the schools. This discrimination in the schools, and we're not fighting for that. We have to fight for that so that when it gets to General Assembly, people will vote. And then we can go to Washington, but I'm going to always fight for equality. I'm going to support the Equality Rights Act, all of it. We just can't keep having the same discussion. It's not benefiting us as a society. Our society does not win when we discriminate. The only people that win from discrimination are the top 1%, because they can keep us fighting and they just take home the money. We don't benefit at all. At all. So I hope that everyone will just examine themselves and find out what's there, because it's us that's keeping this thing, this sore, this cancer going. It's cancer, and it's dangerous. And we spend a lot of money because of it. We're spending $82 billion a year to lock people up because it's discrimination. So I don't want to spend that money. We need health care. The kids need schools and books and things of this nature, but discrimination is keeping us from having it. So join me in fighting discrimination. Thank you.
I'm Catherine Poindexter, and I live in Bon Air. Thank you all for being here. Dan, the next time you get a speeding ticket, you should hire a criminal defense attorney and boost the economy. Right, Sarah? Okay. So my question, and I'll mention that I am a member of the Liberal Women of Chesterfield County. I'm curious, in light of Time Magazine's recently coining 2018 as the year of the woman, what you all are doing to promote, first of all, do you agree with that statement? And second of all, what are you doing specifically, not what you did in the past, but what you're doing now and in the future to promote women in politics?
Let me just say, it is the year of the woman. And we are the women. So we're doing a whole lot just being on the stage. There haven't been any women on our stage ever in this district. So this is big. And I'm an African-American woman. There's never been an African-American in this district ever. So I'll say we've come a long way. And I'm fighting for all the women in Congress now. They are some phenomenal women. So but we need more. We need a lot more. Women make up over 50% of the population, and yet we only represent 20% of Congress. So we have to teach our girls that they can and they should. And then we got to support them. And we got to vote for them. From the beginning. Brownies, Girl Scouts, on up. So I'm working with the women. I'm sending them funds. I mean, I'm working on my campaign right now. I'm trying to still fight out there, but it's really a lot of work working on the campaign. So I send money, and I'll revisit helping them a little bit later. Thank you.
So, I've always said a measure of society, if you look around the world, the more repressive a country is, the worse the women are treated in that country. And the more progressive a country is, the more representation women have. If you look around at Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, it's old men running things. And that's a true statement. I also would like to point out that we're in a very precarious situation right here in this country. In Donald Trump's budget that was just proposed, Lockheed will get more money than the United States State Department. At a time when we are, war and diplomacy are on the same political spectrum. We're destroying our State Department, our ability to talk, that leaves us with war. We're at a record low percentage of veterans in Congress. And we need that check in there. And I'm a veteran. And I understand what that means. Chicken hawks declare war very easily. But those of us who have been there understand what that means. And we need people like that there. And that is one of the core reasons of why I am here. Thank you.
So as Helen mentioned, women currently make up 20% of Congress, 19.8% to be exact. And in fact, in Afghanistan, they actually have parity in their JIRGA because it was legislated by us when we went in and rebuilt Afghanistan. So we rank behind Afghanistan in the number of women who are representative in the legislative body. I served in embassies overseas. I served as a CIA officer. I was based in an embassy. I understand issues of national security. I understand how to avoid war. And when we look at who is represented in Washington, there's currently actually only ever been one operations officer in Congress. He's currently there as a congressman from Texas. So these are people who are undercover, who are out there working on behalf of national security issues, and we have a strong voice too. So I have the background to address issues of national security. But when we are looking about whether or not this is the year of the women, I think that we ushered it in a little early in Virginia in 2017. And we're going to bring it home in 2018. Not just here, but in Virginia's 10th district as well. So I look forward to going to Congress. I look forward to upping some of those numbers. And for those of you who saw the cover of Time magazine, there are a lot of other women who are going to be there with me.
Hi, my name is Dan Kelly, and thank you also for coming and sharing your hearts with us. I want to ask about something that I think everyone is thinking about. It's hard to talk about it without crying. Specifically, so really specifically, what would you do to change the laws about gun violence in our country? Really specifically.
This topic is really sensitive to me. It's gonna be a little difficult for me to talk about it as well. It has been a lot of children. It's hard to stomach the deaths from guns. And we haven't done anything. That's a concern. And the reason why we haven't done anything, and I just can't even imagine that we've allowed the NRA to decide who lives and who dies without fighting at all. So we've allowed them to take over elected officials and candidates. So it's so bad, in fact, that I decided, against all odds and against everyone telling me that I shouldn't do it, I decided to put it on my platform. I decided to take on the NRA. I'm not going to take any funds from them. I'm going to promote not taking any funds for them. I'm telling every candidate in the country, please don't take money from the NRA. And I am also adding legislation when I get to Congress within 120 days of being there that we will ban assault rifles. We will ban the bump stocks, and we will come up with universal background checks. And I think that's reasonable, I think it's sensible, and it may not stop all violence in the country with guns, but it can stop some. And so that's what I specifically want to do about gun control. I want to put on my platform, I've done it already, gun reform. Thank you.
Abigail.
So I've been taking on the NRA for the past 3 years as a volunteer with Moms Demand Action. I used to carry a weapon everywhere in banks, on planes. I am comfortable with a firearm. I trained with a firearm. I trained with how to shoot a firearm, how to retain a firearm. And so I know the responsibility of gun ownership. I also like to shoot. It's actually very fun. But what I believe is very important is that we recognize that we have a problem in this country. It is the mass shootings that are impacting our children. It's people who are domestic abusers who are able to kill their spouses and shoot their spouses when there is a weapon in the house. It's unintentional shootings when kids find a gun in a home because it was left unsecured. And legislatively, in Washington, I would take the following steps. I would work to repeal the Dickey Amendment, which is what prohibits the CDC from doing any studies. Congressman Dickey supports repealing the Dickey Amendment. I would advocate for background checks for all gun purchases. If you are a federally licensed gun vendor, or federally licensed gun vendor, any firearm sales that you have to have a background check. It's through person-to-person sales and gun shows that we are able, that criminals are able, that people with a history of violence are able to skirt the current system in place. I would also work to ensure that our NICS program, which is what feeds the background check program, is strengthened. And I would advocate for ERPO, which is Emergency Risk Protective Order. When we look at situations where people are in crisis, that means people who are potentially cause harm to themselves or others, including veterans who disproportionately kill themselves with firearms. The Emergency Protective Orders, or ERPOs, would allow for family and friends to be able to raise concerns and temporarily take that gun away from that person to stop a potential incident. Thank you.
So, a coworker of mine, a friend of mine, contributor to my campaign, lost his 14-year-old daughter in Park. 2 days after Newtown, I was in the Hyatt in Washington, D.C., and the NRA was raffling an AR-15. It was a cause célèbre. Essentially, this is the weapon that killed 6-year-olds 2 days earlier. And they're auctioning and raffling it off. That's what the NRA stands for. Their policies have been running rampant in this country for 20 years. And look what it's led to. We cannot allow this to continue. It is time for bold action. You know, I was on the Quantico rifle pistol team. I am a very good shot. It is fun to shoot. But when we shoot, we go to the range, we shoot, we count the ammo to make sure it's all accounted for, and then we turn it back in, and then we go back. And that's what we need to do. People, listen, there are a lot of assault weapons out there, and it's going to be really difficult to get rid of them. But it needs to be in a controlled environment. And that's how we're going to be able to do this, is that you take your assault weapons and you go to the range, and you shoot it, and you turn it back in. Universal background checks is at a minimum, and it needs to be a single source. Because right now it's this disparate patchwork of checking that is allowing too many people to get through the cracks. We have to fix that. In bump stocks, that goes without saying. That makes it an automatic weapon. It's already illegal, and yet we don't enforce it. So folks, it is time for bold action. We cannot allow the NRA to continue to run this country because they do. And Dave Brad took $4,000 from them. You can bet your bottom dollar I will never accept one dime from them. Thank you.
The order for this next question will be Abigail, Helen, and then Dan.
Hi, my name is Jim Gerard. I live in Powhatan, and I'm a member of the Richmond Business Alliance. The question is about how to put Dave Brad in the corner on some policy things. Particularly, he's in a small business committee. He, as you know, likes to get on TV a lot. I don't know if you've seen his newsletter this week talking about being bipartisan. It's a whole paragraph and everything. But my question is really about policy and what you're thinking about in terms of your strategy on the offensive side, particularly with regard to healthcare and small businesses. What are you doing, what in particular specifics or otherwise are you doing to put him in a corner about what he's doing for small businesses in this district and nationwide really? It's the number one issue that small businesses are surveyed recently that hasn't been solved. Sole proprietor LLCs are in the corner, as you know. There's only one insurance provider in this district, it's Anthem. And he's, a lot of show horse, nothing against show horses, but he's a lot about that and not doing anything. So, what are you going to do to put him in a corner when you get him on stage?
So, strengthening our healthcare system, ensuring that every American has access to affordable quality healthcare is fundamentally also an economic issue. It's not just about healthcare. I have dear friends who started their business a number of years ago, and when my friend became pregnant, needed to go back to her private sector job because she needed healthcare. She needed healthcare to carry her through labor and delivery and to provide for their small child. So in doing that, my friend, who is the business strategist and the marketing person in this two-person team, took a step back and slowed the growth and development of their company because of healthcare. After ACA went into place, she was able to leave her private sector job. She was able to jump back into the company that she and her husband were working to build together, and they were able to do it full time. They now employ over 10 employees because they have the flexibility, because of ACA, to invest in their business and not make decisions about where they're going to be employed or what sort of career they're going to pursue just because they need health insurance. And so when we look at the conversations we can have with Congressman Brad, the fact that he fought to repeal the ACA and then ultimately voted to amend it and put it on a trajectory towards increased premium prices and increased numbers of Virginians who will not be covered by 2025 with the vote. Because if someone with an entrepreneurial spirit to go out and take a risk. And for so many families, the only thing holding them back from that level of risk, from that level of engagement in building their business, is the risk of what happens to their health care if they go out on their own. And so I would challenge him on that because, in fact, it is a pro-business stance to ensure that our citizens have access to affordable quality health.
I would challenge Dave Bragg on all levels of his support for small business. I have been working with businesses for years. I've been a small business owner for many years. I cannot think of one program that Dave Bragg has put into place that would support small business owners. Small business owners cannot usually have employees with insurance. So that's why I think if we push for Medicare for all or universal health care and take that responsibility off of the small businesses, then they can now benefit from being able to expand and grow their businesses and be the entrepreneurs that they want to be. There are 1.5 million shortages in businesses in our country this year. And usually when it's this many business shortages, it's because people don't have the funding. And so I'd like to make funding accessible again so that people can start businesses and grow. And usually if they don't get the funding or they don't start their businesses because they're skeptical of our economy. And both of those are true. And Dave Bragg has not promoted anything that would help a small business. He's supported corporations. But we don't own corporations in our district, not most of us. I don't know many people who have large corporations. We are small mom and pop stores and, we make up a lot of business, but they're small dollar businesses. So I want to make sure that healthcare is affordable economical, and it's taken out of the responsibility of the business owner. Thank you.
So clearly, healthcare is at the corner of that question, and I totally agree. We need to reinforce the Affordable Care Act. We also need to buy into Senator Kane's Medicare X that will allow people to buy into government healthcare insurance. This will free people up to move. If they're not comfortable in the job they want to be, if they want to start up their own job, they can do it. And as we all know, I say this often, Churchill once said, Americans exhaust every option before we get to the right answer. We know we are moving eventually to single payer. That's going to happen, just out of the cost, right? That's how we're going to do allow them to taste government healthcare insurance. It's not so bad. 25 years in the Marine Corps, government insurance works, and we lead the people there. Another point I'd like to add is that the tech industry in this country is one of the largest innovators in this country, and net neutrality. We have to protect net neutrality. These folks are trying to take it down. If we take net neutrality down, we are going to stifle innovation in the tech industry that's been driving this economy in a lot of small businesses across this country. So that's the second thing that's also quite important. Thank you.
The order for this question is Helen, Dave, and then Abigail.
First, I want to say I think all three of you are great candidates. I'm very optimistic about the chances of flipping the district. I have a simple question, a short question. Would you sponsor and support legislation to require presidential candidates to release their tax returns? Say a little bit about why or why not you think that.
I would absolutely support that. In fact, I think we should ask for it when they decide to run, because we don't want to spend a whole lot of time working on working with someone